in IST. Okay, we're only recording this part, obviously not the clinical part. We're tending to get very technically focused. And I find that we're often missing the forest for the trees. And we're even missing the patient for the problems. I mean, people will come and they'll present, they'll say, this is high resistance with repression. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Who is this person? Right? A woman, 23, just graduated college. I mean, again, you know, we're treating a person with struggles and problems. And we also need to be a person. And so I'm showing you a relatively recent case. And again, it's on video. And I even forgot to press the record. So I'll have to fill you in on the first 5 minutes. I go, oh, I forgot to press it. And you're going to see I have some very human reactions along the way. And it's tempting to edit those out because it's kind of embarrassing. But, you know, I've been thinking the past couple of years, you know, why I get the results I do, and I don't get so much intense resistance. Of course, there's some, but I start to think maybe it's because I am so authentically involved with patients, and they feel that, and they feel my caring. So you're going to see two people here trying to understand not just the nature of the problem, of course, but also the person's capacity, their motivation, and their willingness to do the work. So I'm just going to do a very brief PowerPoint because you're all experienced, right? And it's really about putting our knowledge, applying it, right, clinically. So it's going to be clinically very heavy today. So I'm going to share the screen and go to my PowerPoint. Can everybody see that? Is it up there? Okay, so again, we're talking about developing a case formulation, a hypothesis, right, about the conflicts that are responsible for the patient's symptoms and suffering. So we're going to gather and then integrate all the information we're gathering in the trial therapy in order to, again, form that hypothesis and test it out. And of course, it is the patient's response to intervention that's either going to corroborate our hypothesis or encourage us to adjust it. So we always start with a detailed, specific phenomenological inquiry into the nature, history, and severity of the patient's presenting problems. So in this way, you can begin to identify what the triggers are, right? When, where, in what situations do the symptoms arise? This is very, very important data, which again, is going to help you formulate a hypothesis, right? Does the patient get depressed following loss, right? As opposed to conflictual situations, right? So does it look like there's some pathological mourning and that we're going to need to help the person face and process feelings around grief? Or does it look like the depression is largely the result of anger turned inward, right? We don't just assume, we're going to assess. And this information is very important in that process. And at the very same time, we're assessing the patient's capacity, right, to engage in the process. What are they bringing, right? What are their strengths, their willingness to engage, to look deeply, to heal, right? So we've got that two-pronged, what's the problem and what's the patient's capacity to do the work. So as we're getting this data in the inquiry, we're going to want to then pretty quickly get into specific examples. Again, I all too often see people talking in general about when you get depressed and what's it like when you're angry, but they're floating around. They're nowhere on the triangle of person. This is getting forgotten. So it's very important to get specific examples of the symptom generating situation. So that's either going to be in their current life. Very often it's going to be the incident that propelled them into treatment, right? What was the precipitating incident? Or you're going to see something happening between the two of you. The patient suddenly shuts down and withdraws and avoids your eyes. I mean, there's going to be evidence, right, that they're having some kinds of feelings towards you and they're avoiding it. So you're going to look for an example either in the current life or in the transference. So you've got them somewhere specific on the triangle of person, and then we begin to investigate on the triangle of conflict. I wonder what kinds of feelings you're having toward me, right? Or toward your husband, or whatever it is. Now, I would say in 85% of the cases, the person responds with a defense, right? So it's typically the patient's habitual defenses, right, that are responsible for their symptoms and suffering. So they tend to mistake their defenses for their feelings. So you ask, how do you feel towards your husband? Well, I think he's really a very difficult man, right? So they'll tell you what they think. Okay, so this phase 2 of defense work is very, very important and not something to be skipped over just to press for feeling, right? So you want to make sure that the patient can see that they're actually doing something to avoid their painful, anxiety-provoking feelings, and that these ways in which they avoid have a cost, and in fact are often responsible for their symptoms and suffering. So this is an absolutely crucial phase of the work. If the patient really sees that their defenses are responsible for their difficulties, they're going to be more motivated to give them up, right, in favor of having an honest look at their true feelings. Right, so once the patient sees this, right, they see that they avoid their feelings in ways that hurt them, right, they see the cost, only then, right, can you put them at choice, right? Do they want to continue to run and hide and avoid in this way and continue to suffer, or do they want to face their feelings in order to heal and get their freedom, right? So it really is up to the patient, it's not up to us. So this putting them at choice is very, very important. And I don't move on to this next phase of feeling until the patient has indicated that's what they want to do. Okay? So once they've turned on their defenses and expressed a desire to connect with their feelings, that's what we do. And you press to the feeling until you see some sort of physical mobilization of impulse, right? You're going to watch for, the jaw clenching or fists forming, right? That's your indication that the impulses are in the preconscious bin. And it's at that point that we can go to the portrait. Boy, I could see your fist there, right? If that anger came up, what does that fist want to do? Okay, and it's on the heels of this portrait, right? Initially, in many, many cases, not always, but often, of reactive anger, right? That you're going to get this opening into the unconscious with links to the past. So the individual you start with, either you and the transference or someone in the current, will be linked to a genetic figure from the past, right? You then get this de-repression of memories, dreams, and associations that shed light on the development of the core conflicts that are responsible for the patient's suffering. Right, so this is the UTA in full flower, bringing us the information we need to, again, either confirm or adjust our hypothesis about these core conflicts responsible for the problems. And then we're going to consolidate, right, what we've learned and put those two triangles together. And in the case I'm going to show you, you're going to really see a beautiful example of the repetition compulsion. Right, the unresolved past, she keeps repeating, right, in the present, right? So we're going to want to help her, right, get to the core of it so she can resolve it at the source and not have to keep repeating this torturous pattern. Okay, so that's it for my PowerPoint. Any questions or comments or? This is all old hat, right? And please raise your hand if you have a question or a comment. Can we automatically see who's raising their hand, or would we have to scroll through?
Yeah, no hands so far.
No hands, so everybody's totally clear. Like you all know about how to do, institute the central dynamic sequence in the trial therapy to assess the patient. And so we're just going to do it then. Okay, so I'm going to, this woman contacted me by email.